following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, go Cowboys!
This is Mick Shots, streaming live on DallasCowboys.com and the official Dallas Cowboys app. Now, here are Bill Jones, Everson Walls, and Nicky Spagnola.
And our pregame coverage of the Jerry Jones pre-draft press conference continues here inside the SWBC podcast studio as we count down the days to the start of the NFL draft on Thursday. Now 3 days away. Bill Jones with Mickey Spagnola. Everson Walls decided that he's going to let us handle the draft talk. And he'll be back to recap the draft next Monday at 11 a.m. But here we are. It's almost draft day.
Finally, right? Been talking about this, it seems like, for 3 months.
That's right. And I've gotten my big green notebook. It's in the last month where I've been filling this thing up.
Look at there.
You know what? The way I look at it every year, it's like I'm back in college. I spend the spring semester filling up back in the day. I guess they use Google Doc or whatever they use now on their laptops, these young college kids today. But I decide, okay, I'm going old school. About 14 years ago, I decided to go old school with my draft preps with the big green notebook.
So I think we should do today is turn the tables. I'll ask the questions, you answer.
I'm ready. I mean, I woke up this morning thinking, I could talk for days about this draft now. I mean, there are all these prospects that I'm discovering. I mean, there's so much talk about the top of the draft and, mainstream media and elsewhere where what's going to happen at the top of the draft. Once you really dig into it, it is really interesting to see the intriguing prospects that are later in the draft,
right.
Whether it's where the Cowboys pick at 26 or in the second, third, fourth, even fifth round. I mean, that's why I love this. It's why I every spring dig into it to learn all these players that are coming into the league, but and trying to figure out, like all these teams are trying to figure out, which guys are going to make it, because it's not all about their 40 time or even their college production. It's not all about that either. There's so much more that goes into it, and so I just love digging into it.
Did you discover any draft-eligible players actually still playing in the XFL?
There is at least one that there may be more. I haven't.
Did I see one?
I haven't moved to the XFL yet, but I did see something about there's one who is draft eligible who's trying to increase his stock.
Right, I think I read
spring.
that story.
And there's maybe more than one. I don't know.
Right,
but I haven't got to that point yet.
Which, by the way, I learned a very interesting little fact about the XFL.
What's that?
So they're all based here.
That's right. Yeah,
but they play in their
respective cities.
Cities.
Yep.
Both teams ride the same charter flight.
That's understandable.
The home team gets to sit in the front of the plane. The visitors sit in the back. And after the game, both teams are on the same plane going home.
Okay, and I'm not sure. I haven't worked to confirm this or not, but yesterday we had a matchup of the Arlington Renegades, coached by Bob Stoops, against Wade Phillips' Houston Roughnecks. As it turned out, it was a meaningless game because Wade has won another division championship as the head coach of the Roughnecks, and his team will play Stoops' team, the Renegades, in the first round of the playoffs on Saturday night. But when they met earlier this season, the announcer said something. Actually, in their post-game handshake, Stoops and Phillips said to each other, "See you back at the house."
Yeah.
Have they been living?
Now, I don't know if they're
roommates
living
throughout
together,
the spring?
but they may have a complex where they put all these guys, right?
I would imagine so.
Yeah. And maybe the coaches.
I thought I heard that they were like roommates.
I was going to say, I wonder if they sit at the front of the plane together, which it's got to be a weird atmosphere after you play somebody, and then it's like, okay, let's go board.
And by the way, I understand the hay is in the barn for any football game by the day before the game or the 2 days before the game, but Stoops was in Norman, Oklahoma on Friday and Saturday for their spring game and stuff. Anyway, so that was just an aside, but I thought that was interesting. And there's a Cowboys connection because Wade Phillips can put that on his resume as well.
Absolutely.
Now, he's a couple of wins away from winning a championship in the XFL.
Okay, so who are the Cowboys drafting? How many times have you been asked that question?
Several times, and who knows who the Cowboys are drafting.
That's a good answer.
It is and the reason is, and in fact, I heard Charlie Weiss talking about it on my drive-in on NFL radio, that he cannot remember a draft where it was so uncertain in the first round what teams are going to do.
Compared to this one?
Yeah.
This one is so uncertain.
This is the most uncertain draft he has ever heard of or seen in the first round. Because, I mean, you think about it, at the top of the first round, it now appears that the Alabama quarterback, Bryce Young, is going to Carolina. There's been so much talk about C.J. Stroud, his stock dropping and so forth. And is Houston now out on taking a quarterback? And will they take Will Richardson from Alabama? Or will they, and now the talk is Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. Or do they trade out? And so Houston controls the draft right now, if you're going to believe that Bryce Young is going to Carolina. And so it just trickles down. Depending on what Houston does, then we don't know what Arizona's going to do. On down the line, Indianapolis at 4. Are they going to take a quarter? What's Seattle? They may take a if Stroud falls, whatever, And so you really don't know from there. And then as you get related to the Cowboys, what's going to happen with Bijan Robinson?
Right.
And if some of these guys trickle down, I mean, there's been talk about Philadelphia might even be interested in Bijan Robinson at number 10. But what if one of those defensive players moves down to number 10 and they want to take somebody, like the Georgia, like Carter, the Georgia defensive tackle, who may be the best player in the entire draft?
So do you think from a talent standpoint, standout great players coming out in this draft, that there's fewer than we're used to seeing?
After
you get past the quarterbacks, I mean, who's the greatest defense? I mean,
and even with the quarterbacks, there's nothing on the quarterbacks. It says that who knows how Bryce Young's going to do at this size in this league. I think it's a handful of guys that, like, you think back to the Tyron Smith draft where Tyron went 10th and J.J. Watt was. I mean, we're 10, 11 picks in the draft, and you got Hall of Famers being drafted.
Right.
And I don't know that this draft has that. I mean, we'll see. But, I mean, there are certain drafts where you could, there were, 8 to 10 players that, okay, these are your top 10 picks in this draft, and who knows? I mean, there could be a guy who some think is going 5th, who may wind up going 15th or 18th, and it has nothing to do with any off-the-field stuff. It's just how they've been evaluated by teams.
So thus the uncertainty in this draft.
Right. Wide receiver. I mean, it's at the top. I think there are some good wide receivers from late first through the 4th round, 5th round even. I like a lot of the wide receivers in that 3rd and 4th round range. But there's not the Calvin Johnson types. There's not, who knows if Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to wind up being like a CeeDee Lamb in his career. He may be the top guy, but some have Jordan Addison from USC being the top guy. There's the TCU big wide receiver, Quentin Johnston. There's not very many big wide receivers in this draft either. And so if you want to get one of those who, like a Quentin Johnston, then maybe you have to take him in the first round because there's nothing later.
From a size standpoint, because I saw one analysis going on, and it said that if you're torn between cornerbacks and wide receivers, you better take the cornerback in the first round because there's more wide receivers, 2nd, 3rd, more quality depth.
There's quality. I think quality cornerbacks in the early rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were saying, if you like that cornerback, you better grab him.
And it's the cornerbacks that have the size that teams are looking for now. That Dan Quinn is looking for now.
Exactly. So don't sell the Cowboys short on that possibility.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Or because my answer has been universal. When somebody asked me that, I said, you give me a position short of quarterback in the first round, and I'll give you a reason why the Cowboys should take that position.
All right, let's run through it right now. Okay, short, and you can make the case for quarterback on the third day.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, running back. Here's a situation at running back. And by the way, what two people are looking at what the Cowboys do in this draft more so than Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard?
Yeah, right.
Both of them, actually.
No, yes. Because Pollard knows he's on a 1-year guaranteed deal, and nothing's promised for 2024.
And
right?
how does that affect him going forward if the Cowboys pick a running back in the first round?
Right. Is he still in the same role, right, as the
and his contract,
back?
His pending
absolutely.
contract, and for obvious reasons, Zeke as well. So there you go, running back. Pollard's in his contract year. Zeke obviously out. There's obviously an opening at the end right there. Wide receiver.
Sure.
They picked up the fifth-year option on CeeDee Lamb. That was the news from the last few days, and that was as expected.
$17.9 million guaranteed for his fifth year.
So they have him under contract through 24.
And then they restructured Brandon Cook's contract, so he's got 2 years remaining.
And he is, where is he? I had his age written down here somewhere, and I don't have it anymore.
Well, I think it's 30.
Yeah.
And then they're banking on Michael Gallup coming back. Not coming back, but playing to the level he played before he tore his ACL. And after that, well, it's question marks. They're going to give Jalen Tolbert a chance, but, another wide receiver, I could
There's
qualify that.
No doubt. Yep. And as early as the first round. And
yes.
Obviously tight end.
Tight end.
Okay.
But the thing I think you need to remember about tight end is they don't need some fancy speed guy that goes downfield. They need a complete tight end, somebody that can block. Because in my books, that's where they fell short. I think Jake Ferguson has potential to be that complete tight end, but if the guy can block, I would put that above his ability to go vertical.
I agree with that. Okay. Offensive line.
It's a tackle that can play guard, but you're going to do that 2 years in a row. That's the question.
And what the Cowboys have right now, they have a tackle who can play guard in Tyler Smith, who they drafted in the first round last year.
But let me stop you right there, because if you listen to Stephen Jones this past week, he was pretty adamant that Tyler Smith's our left tackle.
He is the left tackle. All right, so then you have Tyron Smith. While Terrence Steele comes back from his ACL injury, Tyron Smith is your starting right tackle.
If Terrence isn't ready,
okay,
I think.
So those are your three top tackles.
Right.
Okay.
And then?
An opening at the end at left guard.
So they're going to look at Josh Ball there. They're going to look at Farniak there. And then they can look in the draft. But again, you don't need to draft in the first round a guard, right? You can get one in the second or third round, somewhere in there. That might be good enough to walk in and start.
By the way, what's Tyler Biadasz's contract status?
He's going into the final year of his rookie deal.
Final year of his contract.
So if a guard can play center or a center can play guard.
And Zach Martin will be 33 in November.
Yeah, that's all right. He's got 3 years left.
Yeah. But at the same point, we're not drafting just for this year.
Right.
We're drafting for the next 5 years if you're a first rounder, and the next 4 years beyond the first round.
See, and my thought was if Tyron Smith was judged, good enough to play left tackle, then they could move Tyler Smith inside. But I think Stephen Jones' point was, he said the overwhelming feeling is Tyler Smith is a left tackle.
Well, and the other part of that is Tyron has not been able to play a full season,
right,
because of injuries here in recent years.
I mean, it was he's played 11 or 14 games over the last 50 games that he could have played. So, they can say, okay, he's fine, he's back in shape and whatever. But again, how well did he play when he was starting? Now, if Terrence, and everything I've heard is Terrence Steele, they feel like has a good chance of being ready to start the season, but I bet when they get to training camp, he's going to be a pup guy, right? They're not going to rush him in. And so you got to see there, and if he's not ready, then Tyron's your right tackle. And you would hope, I think he was okay at right tackle, but we talked about it last week, how the running game went downhill those last 4 regular season games when Terrence Steele wasn't in the lineup.
All right, on defense, defensive line, how much of a need is there both at interior and on the outside?
I would say interior. They re-signed Jonathan Hankins, but it's a 1-year deal at the veteran exception, so it's not like they're financially obligated to him. I think you got Osa Odigizua.
Who's got 2 years left.
And after that, Quentin Bohanna was just kind of a guy, and Neville Gallimore is entering his last year under contract.
But I think you can also make a case at defensive end as well, because DeMarcus Lawrence, he's over 30 now.
Right.
Okay. And Dorrance Armstrong's going into his contract year.
Correct.
Second year of a 2-year deal for him. Now Sam Williams is going into his second year, and they expect Sam Williams to make the progress from year 1 to year 2 to get more snaps, I would imagine, this year. Dante Fowler is on a 1-year, $3 million deal.
Exactly.
And in fact,
and by the way,
not much guaranteed money there either.
And by the way, they move Chauncey Golston from end to tackle. So there's another spot that's kind of empty
on the edge
at defensive end.
Yeah.
So an edge rusher.
And Tack McKinley's another one they signed late in the year, and they've re-signed on another one-year deal. That's right. There is definitely an opening at the end everywhere on the defensive line. All right, linebacker, obviously they re-signed Leighton Vander Esch. I don't even count Micah because Micah is both a linebacker and an edge rusher.
Yeah, so
he's
who knows?
In both categories there. Right. Anthony Barr is out there in free agency, and Luke Gifford signed with Tennessee.
So you got Damone Clark and what? So linebacker, I think everybody's kind of ignored that position. But if there's a standout guy at 26 and he's better than these other positions, why not?
And especially a guy who can be on the field in the nickel package, too.
Yes. Because who knows about Jabril Cox, right? We just don't have any idea at this point.
All right, a big move in the offseason is getting Stephon Gilmore at the cornerback spot opposite Trayvon Diggs. But the inventory at cornerback and where the contract status of those players.
So you've got Diggs.
Contract year.
They obviously, Stephen pointed out that they want to re-sign him. And if they can't, they could franchise him if they need to hold his deal. Gilmore is on a 1-year deal, and he's 33 years old, by the way. And then Jordan Lewis coming back off his Liz Frank surgery. I think he's
contract year.
And then Deron Bland, they can sink their teeth into him. Who knows what happens with Kelvin Joseph?
Right now, he's a special teamer.
Right, and Deshaun Wright is not to be trusted yet.
They look strong at safety.
Yes.
However, you've got 2 of the primary players in their contract year in J-Ron Kearse and Malik Hooker.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
the draft, when you have salary cap, I'm not going to say problems, but you've got to manage it. The way to manage it is to draft well and have young guys moving up into those positions so you don't have to pay a guy a second or, by the way, third contract, which is going to cost you some money. At some point, I don't know that it's the first round, They haven't had a history of taking safeties in the first round. The last one would have been, Roy Williams?
Right.
Of note. So, yeah.
But you've got 5 DBs that are in their contract year.
Yes.
5 basically starting DBs. And Diggs, Gilmore, Lewis as the nickel, slot corner, and then Kearse and Hooker. I look at all 3 of the safeties as being starters.
And I think the other thing you have to consider is the position priority. When they look at the draft, they stack the positions like, okay, this is valuable, this is next valuable, like that. They have never put a high priority on a defensive tackle in the first round, Russell Maryland, right? And then I think it was Danny Noonan.
The high priorities, you look at it, it goes from outside to in.
Right.
Outside players are higher priority than inside players.
Except in the secondary, cornerback over safety, right? They're way outside.
Yeah. Well, no, I look at width of the field.
And especially
the corners are more valuable than
safety.
safety.
Yeah. So defensive ends, cornerbacks, then linebacker, then defensive tackle, then safety. That's kind of the way their history of it. Same thing on offense, right? Everybody wants to talk about the running back positions devalued. Well, if you get a good one, and especially at 26, and you can sink your teeth into this guy for 4 years at a very inexpensive price now, right? You're not paying. I think I saw where the 26 pick will average $3.7 million a year. So what? Right? It's almost like a second-round pick. If it's a running back and it's the best one, absolutely, right? And then, we're going to just push quarterback to the side, then wide receiver, and then it would be probably a left tackle. When I started reading the stuff about tackles, I saw a lot of them were, they're starting right tackles. Well, if I'm taking a tackle in the first round, and I already got one in the first round at left tackle, I'm not drafting a right tackle. Sometimes you got to just develop guys and fit them in, right? And I guarantee you, that's the way they assess it.
Yep. All right, we're just getting started on Mick Shots. We're going to go to about 11:45, 11:50, and then it is the pre-draft press conference, and we're back in a moment.
The Medal of Honor is our country's highest military award for valor in combat. More than 40 million individuals have served in the armed forces since the Civil War. Fewer than 4,000 have received the Medal of Honor. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a place to preserve these legacies and inspire America. It's being built right next door to the Dallas Cowboys in Texas. Help us honor our country's greatest heroes. Learn more and get involved at mohmuseum.org.
We paid how much for those lessons?
Shh, she's doing great.
Oh yeah, totally. Can you pass me a Pepsi Zero Sugar? Great job, honey! Oh, look at that. That's not the end.
No way. Now it's time for the encore.
You know what? You're right. 5 times? Not enough times.
For everyone who traded in rock concerts for their kids' recitals, you've compromised enough. Pepsi Zero Sugar. That's what I like.
Nobody protects you from mayhem like Allstate. You hear that? I'm a torrential downpour. Torrential? What's that even mean? It means you can't see out of your windshield. And if you have the wrong car insurance, you might have to make it rain to fix your bumper. So switch to Allstate, save money, and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Based on coverage and limits selected. Subject to terms, conditions, and availability. In most states, prices vary based on how you buy. Allstate Bar and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
What do you call a group of grown men and women with their faces painted silver and blue who get together every week to share a 3-hour-long ritual of jumping, singing, and toasting Miller Lite in 10-gallon hats while yelling, "How about them Cowboys?" You call it Miller Time in Dallas. Here's to the Cowboys. Here's to the original light beer. It's Miller Time. Celebrate responsibly. 2021 Miller Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
to Mick Shots.
K-Post Roofing and Waterproofing. You don't want to have to check your roof when there's a problem. You call K-Post Roofing, and they will come through and check your roof before you have a disaster, and that's kpostcompany.com.
And I wonder what the phone number is.
The phone number is 214-225-4860.
I know that.
Have your roof checked by choice, Mick.
Not by chance.
That was a great read.
Yeah, absolutely.
Done all by memory, as if you couldn't tell
As if we have a memory, right? We only read it every day of the week during the season.
It was the slowest read ever.
Yeah, but it got
out there, though. That's right.
That was at Everson's pace. The second one, we wouldn't be able to do it by
What's
memory.
the second one?
Reliant Home Run Derby.
Oh, yeah. We can do it by memory that Michael Parsons had somebody go to the sporting goods store and got him a bat, and he won it one year, or at least was put on the best show.
Yeah.
I think Van Der Esch may have won it. But.
Absolutely.
All right. We're talking draft, and Jerry Jones has his pre-draft press conference coming up at the top of the hour at noon. I assume Steven will be there too. I don't know.
I think it's a four-man. I think it's a four-man.
Will
show.
McClay will be there too, and Mike
McCarthy.
All right. So that's when we find out who the Cowboys will pick on Thursday.
Yeah, they'll just come right out and tell us.
All right.
All right. So my
questions
for
just letting you all know.
Oh, and add a chair.
There's a fifth chair?
No, because if you look at the feed, there's only 3 chairs right now, so they need to add a chair.
Oh, there's only 3 chairs there.
Well, maybe Mike McCarthy said, I don't know. And I'm sure Will McClay
he's working on calling plays. He can't do the
putting
pre-draft.
in that offense.
That's right.
Right?
So we'll see who's all up there.
Okay. So there are 3 chairs behind the scenes.
All right.
To be determined.
So let's open up that big green notebook.
Okay. What would you like to know?
At 26.
At 26.
Give me 3 possibilities.
3 possibilities at 26.
Yeah.
How about...
realistically, they would be there, and you wouldn't mind drafting them.
Okay. I've only got 1 possibility.
Okay.
But it's not who they're going to draft.
I mean, if Bijan was there, they would take him.
I think so.
Okay.
Yes, I think so.
Chances of that happening?
I don't think so.
Very slight.
Yeah, I don't think so. Let's do it by position. How's that?
Would you, and they've only done it a couple times in their history, taking a tight end in the first round?
There's one tight end that I like and I would take in the first round, but I don't think they're thinking this way.
Darnell Washington?
And that's Darnell Washington from Georgia. But ideally, see, the trick on it is you don't know how other teams evaluate these players.
Right.
And if you look at all the mock drafts out there, all the so-called draft experts, they've got him ranked as a 38th, 40th best player, which would mean, no, you don't take him in the first round. But we don't know that. That's what as Parcells would put it, that cottage industry, the draft so-called experts are saying. This guy's talent, I think, and his potential is tremendous, I think, for the NFL. And, by the way, for this team in his rookie season, the way he can block.
So it's almost, to me, at 26, worth taking a chance on the upside. You've got Jake Ferguson, I think, who can be relied on to be.
Well, let's look at it this way. All right, this is a great year for tight ends, and there are at least 3 tight ends. There were 2 tight ends that are talked about by many being first-round picks, and I will put Darnell Washington in that mix too. But Michael Mayer from Notre Dame and Dalton Kincaid from Utah are 2 tight ends that have been talked about as late first-round selections. And all 3 of these guys might still be on the board for the Cowboys if they were interested in taking a tight end in the first round. So, to your point, I think the Cowboys did a great job last year in acquiring in the 4th round Jake Ferguson and as a college free agent Peyton Hendershot. Okay,
right.
So now you're looking. You've lost Dalton Schultz. Now you're looking for a tight end to take that other spot, who I think can basically be a starter in your 12 personnel and might be your starter in 11 personnel too, depending on how quickly a rookie develops. But I like where Jake Ferguson is coming off. I think he had a really good rookie season, and there's no reason to think he's going to take a step back. I think he's going to keep growing from there. So I'm looking for a tight end to pair with those other 2, and then you throw in Sean McEwen in the mix too as the 4th tight end.
So in this analysis of him, Dane Brugler, by the way, he is a one-on-one talent with fascinating pro potential because of his rare length, play strength, and body flexibility at his size, which is 6'5", 264, it says on this.
He's a 6'6" and 5/8 inches tall. 6'6" and 5/8, 264, and he was 272 at his pro day.
And if you believe the pro day size, he's 6'7".
6'7" and a half.
So I don't know
so
if
I guess he had
grew
on.
a little bit, right?
He had his boots on.
His cleats on.
But it just seems like if this guy can block the way we've seen, right?
All right, let's just compare. Okay, Dalton Kincaid, Utah wide receiver. We don't have any measurables on him because of an injury, and so we don't have his 40 time. We don't have any of that. But we do know he is a really good receiving tight end, and I think he is terrific after the catch too. His run after catch. So I don't have any questions about him as a receiving tight end, and he's fine as a blocker, but even going into the last season for Utah, their number 1 tight end got hurt the 3rd game of the season. Kincaid was the 2nd tight end at Utah, and then he took advantage of that and had 70 catches for 890 yards and 8 touchdowns. There's no knock on him, but that's just sort of what he is as a receiver. Michael Mayer is a complete tight end, quote unquote.
Right.
Okay. He's 21 years old. He's at only 3 years at Notre Dame, a starter for 2.5 of those years. Even his freshman year, he started 4 games, played in 12, had 42 catches, had 71 catches his 2nd year, 67 catches and 9 touchdowns his 3rd year. The difference between Mayer and Darnell Washington, you talk about
blocking.
And Mayer is probably fine as a blocker.
Right.
And people have talked about him being really good as the quote-unquote best blocking tight end. But I don't know if they're considering what Darnell Washington is as a blocker.
And you know what? And the Kincaid guy, he's 246.
Right.
So he's a move tight end. Right.
And Mayer weighed in at 249. He looks bigger than that.
Now, what about this guy? This one caught my eye. Luke Musgrave.
Okay, let me first, before you get to Musgrave, here's Mayer, 31.5-inch arms. Washington, 34.5-inch arms. He's got an 83.5, nearly 84-inch wingspan, Washington does. The measurables, Mayer ran a 4.7 40 with a 32.5 vertical, a 9.10 broad jump, 4.44 shuttle, and a 7.26 three-cone. Just to give it comparison, Hendershot had a 6.91 three-cone. And keep in mind, Mayer a 7.26, and he had a Hendershot was 4.25 on his shuttle, while Ferguson was a 7.03 cone drill. So, Ferguson ran a 4.8 though.
Right.
So Darnell Washington had a 4.08 shuttle time, the 5.10.5 shuttle. I mean, that at that kind of size,
Now
there's some athleticism.
Here might be the difference maker, and none of these things usually have that in there. When they asked on Friday Dak Prescott about what he likes in a tight end, he said first and foremost he has to be smart. He almost has to be smart as a quarterback to be productive in our offense at tight end.
Funny you mentioned that. As on my drive in, I was thinking about the tight ends, and it seems like across the board, all these tight ends seem to be really sharp.
Yeah, and that's what you need.
And so it goes back to college, where guys become tight ends, and they have, in order to be a success, even at college as a tight end. And it's interesting also to see how the tight end has come back into the college game. There was a time 8 to 10 years ago that you couldn't find any tight ends because they were all either moving to the defensive side of the ball or they were wide receivers, whatever. Yeah. All right. So they're using the tight end more in the college game. To that end, listen to Luke Musgrave talk, and you think you're listening to Daryl Johnston. I mean, you talk about a sharp mind. Musgrave, who is the nephew of Bill Musgrave, who was a Cowboys fourth-round draft pick 30 years ago and has been a long-time offensive coordinator both in the NFL and in college. He's an intriguing prospect. He only played 2 games, had a knee injury his last year at Oregon State. But here's another guy with some length at 6'5" and 7/8 inches tall and 251 pounds, ran a 4.6, and he is athletic with a 36 vertical and a 10.5 broad jump.
I like this fact about him. He started skiing at age 5.
Right.
So he's an athlete.
Accomplished skier.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, it helps when your mother was on the U.S. developmental ski team in 1980s, right? So, but anyway.
But then there are other tight ends like Tucker Kraft from South Dakota State, which produced Dallas Goedert. Here's another. He's 6'5", 254 pounds. He had 65 catches in 15 games played for South Dakota State. His junior year there was an All-American. There's a whole bunch of tight ends that are intriguing, but I like Darnell Washington the best out of them, and a lot of it is because of his upside.
And so if he develops in a year or so, and he's that all-purpose tight end, but he can come in and be a blocker in your 2 tight end sets, and you've got Hendershot to stretch the field, I think it's as a threesome, that's pretty strong.
Right.
But I don't need another guy that's just going to catch a bunch of passes, right?
But there's not, and with Mayer, there doesn't appear to be a lot of run after catch ability there,
right?
As there would be with like a Dalton Kincaid and Darnell Washington for that matter.
And let me point this out about when people say the Cowboys lost Dalton Schultz in free agency. Either they chose to lose him, or he chose to not take a pay cut here with the Cowboys because he didn't get paid what he thought he was worth going to the Texans. And I think he might have overstated his value to the Cowboys, and they were like, nah, that's too much.
Probably fell victim to this strong draft class as well. And Mike Gesicki, the same thing happened to him.
Right.
When you look at the lay of the land this offseason.
Because when I see a guy leave and all he signs is a 1-year deal, you didn't lose him. You know, you chose either not to pay him what he was asking for, or he chose to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Other positions that
wide receiver, we mentioned it.
Wide receivers, I like Zay Flowers a lot from Boston College. Of course, I love Jackson Smith and Jigba. I don't think he's going to be.
That's not going to happen.
He's not.
What about the guy from TCU?
Quentin Johnston. I like him. I
like the size.
Yeah, he's nearly 6'3", 208 pounds with a 40.5 vertical and 11.2 broad jump. 60 catches his last year at TCU for over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. And at his size, he's a guy that stretches the field too. And he was Mike Evans for Max Duggan. He was Mike Evans for Max Duggan, like Mike Evans was for Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M. All right, we're back with more in a moment.
We paid how much for those lessons?
Shh, she's doing great.
Oh, yeah, totally. Can you pass me a Pepsi Zero Sugar? Great job, honey! Oh, look at that. That's not the end.
No way. Now it's time for the encore.
You know what? You're right. 5 times? Not enough times.
For everyone who traded in rock concerts for their kids' recitals, you've compromised enough. Pepsi Zero Sugar. That's what I like.
Nobody protects you from mayhem like Allstate. You hear that? I'm a torrential downpour. Torrential? What's that even mean? It means you can't see out of your windshield. And if you have the wrong car insurance, you might have to make it rain to fix your bumper. So switch to Allstate, save money, and be better protected from mayhem, like me.
Based on coverage and limits selected, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. In most states, prices vary based on how you buy. Allstate Bar and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
The Medal of Honor is our country's highest military award for valor in combat. More than 40 million individuals have served in the armed forces since the Civil War. Fewer than 4,000 have received the Medal of Honor. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a place to preserve these legacies and inspire America. It's being built right next door to the Dallas Cowboys in Texas. Help us honor our country's greatest heroes. Learn more and get involved at mohmuseum.org.
The season is finally here. For months, we've been gearing up to win. Now it's time for the team that performs on any field, United Ag and Turf. With John Deere zero turns for mowing, compact tractors for loading, mini excavators for digging, Gator utility vehicles for hauling, implements for grading, hay tools for baling. United Ag and Turf, for winning. The official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com for more. Back to Mick Shots.
The 10th annual Reliant Home Run Derby is back at Riders Field in Frisco on May 3rd at 6 p.m. That's next week, isn't it? Come see your favorite Dallas Cowboy players swing for the fences to raise money for the Salvation Army. Admission and parking are free. Visit DallasCowboys.com/Reliant. HRD to learn more, and see you there because I will be there.
All right. That is more than enough reason to be there. All right. We've got a few more minutes here. But I mentioned Zay Flowers as a potential first rounder. I really like him out of Boston College. You don't like this part about him. 5'9", 180 pounds. Mickey doesn't like short players.
Because he's probably an outside guy. I mean,
or a slot
guy. But doesn't Brandon Cooks can do both, right? He can play outside, inside. Though it's not all about this year, as we.
How many brothers and sisters does Michael Irvin have?
I think it was like 16 or 17.
Okay, Zay Flowers has 13, so that's one of the reasons I like him. Michael turned out pretty well as a first-round pick.
Because you got to be good to feed the rest of your family, right?
There are several mid-round wide receivers I like, including Jaden Reed from Michigan State, who would be like at number 90, third rounder. You got Marvin Mims from Oklahoma, he would be more in the range of the second round pick at 58, probably. And he could fall to the end of the third round. And after that, there's a guy from Stanford, Michael Wilson, who is.
I saw him. That interested me.
Michael Wilson?
Yes.
He was the best receiver at the Senior Bowl. He had injury issues at Stanford, but you talk about a guy, he's got not only his undergraduate degree at Stanford, also his master's in communications. He reminds me, you know who he reminds me of? Miles Austin. In fact, I did a comparison, him and Miles, when he came out, 6'2", 215 pounds. Michael Wilson is 6'2", 213 pounds. Miles ran a 4.51. Michael Wilson ran a 4.5. Miles had 21 bench reps. Michael Wilson, 23 bench reps. Miles had a 40-inch vertical. This guy had a 38-inch vertical. Broad jump, 10.3 for Austin, 10.5 for Wilson. It's almost identical across the board. I really like this Michael Wilson. Again, the only knock on him was the injuries that he suffered in college. He played 6 games his last year at Stanford, and anyway, he is the right kind of guy that you're looking for to add to your football team, and he has a lot of athleticism.
So if you take a wide receiver, you have to judge that guy being better than Jalen Tolbert and Simi Fehoko. Same thing with a running back. Mid-rounds, they better be better than Malik Davis or Rico Dowdle.
But Michael Wilson is a guy, if he's there in the 4th round, I'm really considering him. And due to his injuries, he may still be there in the 5th round.
So when Cedric Wilson gets cut by the Dolphins, would you be interested in bringing him back?
What's the salary?
If they cut him, it is no salary.
That's right. And so you're talking about basically the veteran minimum.
Yeah.
He's got to
Because they basically signed him to a big deal, and now they're sitting there and brought in all these wide receivers, and he ended up being 4th on a big contract.
Okay, I got to talk a defensive player.
Yes.
Yes, Chris Beam.
The one thing I don't like about Wilson, he has more drops in his college career than he does touchdown passes.
Well, and you didn't like that about the Green Bay guy from North Dakota State last year, too.
What about the offensive guard from North Dakota State with all the hair?
Cody Mock.
Got more hair than teeth.
Yeah. How many touchdown catches did that North Dakota State receiver have against the Cowboys in November?
I think that was
the one that had all the drops in college.
A career game. Yeah.
All right.
Defense. Go ahead.
Here's my guy in the 2nd round.
Don't get me
Cowboys.
started on this guy.
Which guy?
Wilson.
Oh, Zach Harrison, Ohio State. Pass rusher. On the edge. He was the number 1 recruit in the nation coming out of high school. And Ohio State fans say, he didn't live up to his expectations.
Was that the guy I saw on the Blitz last night?
Yes. I love him. He is, get this, he is 6'5.5", 269 pounds, 36 1/4 inch arms, and an 85.5-inch wingspan with 10-inch hands. He is only 21 years old, turns 22 in August. Now, the knock on him is he didn't have the sack production, but in 4 years at Ohio State, had 13 sacks. He had 5 forced fumbles and 11 passes defensed, okay? Let me compare him with Tyree Wilson, who might be the 2nd pick in the draft to the Houston Texans at 6'5.5", 271 pounds. His arms just a slightly shorter, 35 and 5/8, 84.5-inch wingspan, very similar. He started his career at Texas A&M, couldn't get on the field there, transfers to Texas Tech, and has now become the talk of the draft that he's going to, and he had 7 sacks for Texas Tech last year. But when I look at these two players, and he's coming off foot surgery where he had a screw inserted in his foot, which has not hurt his draft stock at all, apparently. But I look at these two players, and I can't tell the difference. And Zach Harrison's being talked about as a 3rd-round pick, and Tyree Wilson is being talked about as the 2nd or 3rd pick in the draft.
You got a quarterback you like?
And by the way, Zach Harrison also, when he was in high school, he ran a 4.47 40. Now, that was when he was a 6'5", 235-pound wide receiver. And he ran a 10.700 meters and a 21.5 200 meters.
Okay.
Anyway.
Do you have...
And he's strong as an ox.
Do you have Caleb Murphy on your list?
Caleb Murphy.
He was the winner of the Cliff Harris Small College Award Defensive Player of the Year from Ferris State.
Ferris State.
I think in 2 years he had 30-some sacks.
Okay, I still have work to do before draft day.
Check out Caleb Murphy. Actually, he's listed in this thing as a 6th or 7th round pick.
I don't have all year to fill up my notebook. I got like a month.
Well, but he was Cliff Harris's guy.
I've been cramming for this test, and now I'm not acing the test because you gave me the Cliff Harris Award winner. Did you meet him?
Yes, I did. And a matter of fact,
He had 41 sacks in his college career, 25 last year.
25 sacks last year, right? And
first round?
No, he's not a first round pick.
He's projected
small
6th,
college,
7th round.
yeah. But he got a tour of the place, and he runs into Dan Quinn.
Oh, okay.
You know what Dan Quinn tells him?
Yeah.
We just got done talking about you.
Really?
And then later on his tour, he runs into Stephen Jones.
Yeah.
I said, this guy just had the tour of his life. But better than that, Cliff Harris had never taken a tour of the Star.
Really?
So we're walking. I caught up with them. They were walking down towards from the Cowboys locker room. He had no idea they had that Pro Bowl wall with his name as the top free safety or top safety in Cowboy history because he had the most Pro Bowls.
Wow.
He goes, oh, look at there's my name. He had never been through the place.
Wow.
Anyway, little side
So
note
Caleb
there.
Murphy, who a 6'3", 263-pounder, transferred from Grand Valley State to Ferris State.
Division II, by the way.
Okay. I'll take Zach Harrison in the second round.
All right. I didn't mean for him in the second round.
Drew Sanders, linebacker from Arkansas.
Yes.
He could be in the mix first round. I like Trenton Simpson from Clemson as well.
You got a cornerback?
There are cornerbacks but I don't think the top ones are going to be on the board for the Cowboys at 26.
So they'll be
Banks
at the
from
mercy
Maryland.
of somebody falling into their lap. Otherwise, they're taking what they determine. It's not a player with a first-round grade, but like a first A player that you probably a second-round grade that you wouldn't mind taking in the first round at 26.
I got a safety this morning that I finally was able to take a look at from Boise State that I really like, J.L. Skinner.
Okay.
Third round.
He's a big kid.
Yeah.
He's a
hitter.
Got you down.
Yeah.
J.L.
Skinner. Yeah. Now, he didn't test. He had a torn pec in training for the combine, so he had pectoral surgery. But he'll be ready for training camp.
All right, we should be ready for the draft press conference when they're going to tell us who they're going to draft.
And it will it will begin precisely at high noon, too, right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, and wow.
Oh.
We'll convene in the meantime.
Yes.
We'll get a chance throughout the draft weekend, but next Monday morning at 11 a.m. we will wrap it all up and tell you who all those college free agents are the Cowboys signed. See you next week
on Mick Shots.
Go Cowboys.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!